hate their acts. Sometimes we've noticed this at record companies. Even though they want to be in the business, they feel jealous of their acts and they hate their acts. And if you want anything a certain way, they act like you spoiled brat. Because you're trying to make your career go right or something.
Yeah, can you give me an example how that happened to you guys?
Just they many times record companies ask you to do things that are just impossible to do, way too far to do, and then put a photo session where they want close-ups at the end of the day after you've answered questions for 10 hours or something. This kind of thing where they just have no idea. But someone that had a band that's been in a band would know more, the way it's supposed to be.
So you guys like being on Brett's label?
Oh yeah. I love being on Brett's label. I just like going to their office. We live about 10 minutes from there. And
Barrio?
No, we used to. We used to live in East Hollywood, for years. And we moved to Glendale by Forest Lawn Cemetery, which is still really near there. It's like right after Silver Lake, because Epitaph is in Silver Lake. And right after Silver Lake, east of that is Glendale. And just all the hot rod stuff. Did you see he's got that big car engine for a desk and the blue room, and he designed the furniture and stuff. Some of it, like the baby coffin with the rat fink arms, and it's a piano bench.
So how did you hook up with Epitaph? How did that happen? Did they call you? Did you call them?
We called them. They did our vinyl for Flame Job, our previous album. A lot of bigger labels in America don't put out 12-inch vinyl, and somehow he had done some kind of I don't know the details of the deal, that he did a deal with our record company then to do the vinyl. And he did a real good job. And also we were touring with an Epitaph band with Gas Huffer was opening for us. And we kept seeing all this really great promotion for Gas Huffer. And we wished we were getting that kind of promotion. It was more like underground fanzine promotion. So that was all we wanted when our other record company kind of just fell apart. They went out of business. And no, we went straight to Epitaph, and we were really hoping. We didn't want to go to any other label. We just thought, I hope this is what they want. And we went there, and he was real excited. It was like there was no question or trying to. He didn't have to sell Epitaph to us. We didn't have to sell the Cramps to him. We just said, crazy. It's cool.
Okay, having coffee with the Cramps part 2. You guys still consider yourselves punk?
Sort of punk attitude. I think when our band started, we were considered part of a punk scene, and that we saw ourselves as fitting in that at that time. I think punk has kind of evolved to mean more of a musical style in most people's minds, which doesn't even, I don't even think the Sex Pistols fit in to the musical style that's considered punk now. It's kind of more of a real fast, more specific thing. But yeah, the philosophy of it, the whole stay sick philosophy of us is also very punk.
Yeah, indeed.
I always thought that I always hated that word punk, though. It sounds like William Burroughs said that he always thought punks were guys that took it up the ass.
Well, it is in a prison. That's what they call in prison, the guy that is
drops his soap.
I always kind of thought what we were doing was the only good thing, and all these other bands on the radio and stuff like that were just pop shit,
So
some of the bands now don't sing punk to us. We have a song called Garbage Man, and had a line in it, "You ain't no punk, you punk." And sometimes we'll think that we'll even just be watching TV of I don't want to name names, but just a very successful punk band, and we'll just say, "You ain't no punk, you punk."
I got a call from an old Cramps fan this morning when he found out that I was about to meet you guys, and he was like, "Oh, please ask him what the new album is like. Is there going to be songs like a Garbage Man in there?"
It's techno. Our new album is techno. We've completely changed.
Yeah, we opened our ears.
Don't disappoint that guy.
Yeah, people have been trying to tell us to be more open-minded for years. We finally saw that they were right.
It's techno music, and the subject matter is about my parents who got a divorce, and it's really made me feel so unhappy. I just want to write lots of songs telling the world how badly I've had it. Growing up in suburbia.
We want to share our personal pain with the world. It's so interesting.
Hey, you recorded the first album in the Sun Studios, right?
Yeah, it was Sam Phillips' studio, which was
the gangster around Elvis.
Huh?
The gangster guy around Elvis.
gangster guy.
Did he rip off Elvis?
Oh no, he didn't rip off Elvis.
Well, he
No.
might have. I mean, who
Well, I didn't
knows?
think so.
He's a shrewd businessman, that whatever that is. But oh no, Sam Phillips is wonderful. He's responsible for that sound, and he didn't just he wasn't just a businessman. He was the recording engineer at those sessions. He was the one who recognized that something special was happening. There's a very famous recording of him with Jerry Lee Lewis, where Jerry Lee Lewis wants to stop recording right in the studio because he's also very religious. He has he's saying, but I can't do this. This is the devil's music, and there's it's this famous conversation, and you hear Sam Phillips, speaking over the speaker to him, convincing him that it's worth doing and that it's not a contradiction with his religion to do this devil's music.
Saying that rock and roll can save souls too. It doesn't just damn souls. It saves souls too. Now you might be getting Sam Phillips mixed up with the Colonel. He's the one that ripped off Elvis.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
You guys were around when New York punk really got going, right?
Yeah.
Ramones, you guys toured with Ramones?
We didn't tour with the Ramones, but we opened for them locally, and they gave us our start. They really did. They were, because before we played with them, we weren't known much at all, and we even had difficulty getting booked into CBGBs, and then the Ramones came to our shows. All the bands would go and see each other's shows, and they invited us to open for them, to support them, and their fans liked us, and we were told that they wouldn't. They said it was like throwing Christians to the lions if you opened for the Ramones, and it was great. And that was the biggest break we've had in our entire lives was that, because then we could play and get booked on our own, and everything started from there.
You always hear stories that the New York punk scene back then was so much more fun than any music style now. Is it true?
Yeah, it was a real lifestyle. I mean, there was no news. No news wanted to know anything about it. It was completely secret thing for a long time. Like before the Sex Pistols hit or something. That's when all of a sudden the news started paying attention that something weird was happening. But before that, it was just completely secret thing that nobody knew about except the band. The same bands would go see the bands that were playing. A band that was playing on Wednesday night, the next night would go see the band that came to watch them the night before, and it was really fun. Back in those days, New York was kind of a scarier, more dangerous place than it is now. It's a real swell kind of place, a real yuppie-fied and everything. But it was great fun. I'm real thrilled that that's where we started.
So how is that you guys are still going strong, and everything disappeared from that scene except the Ramones, but like a lot of people just sort of
Finished.
What amazed us at the time is a lot of the bands who got signed by the labels, with Blondie and Talking Heads and Television, what the public ended up hearing was nothing what any of those bands were like live, or even the B-52s that came later. They were all rock and roll bands. They all had this kind of like punky, edgy, tough kind of quality to them, and it might be hard to imagine, but they all seem to have something in common. But by time they had their record deal, one in the studio with their producer, and it came out to the public, and that's their first record, it was nothing like what we would see, because we would go see Blondie and Talking Heads, and it all went together to us. It was all rock and roll. So that changed. It wasn't just that bands aren't around now, but just immediately, as soon as the labels got them, and the whole machinery that kicked in just kind of took it away.
Seeing like Television back before they had their record deal, which took them a long time to get, was like seeing the Yardbirds or something. It was like real. They would play like Psychotic Reaction and stuff like that. And they were just a real crappy rock and roll band. And all of a sudden they had a record deal, and it was just like this fluid, just rock music thing, And it's the same thing with the Talking Heads. They sounded like disco when they had a record, but they sound more like the 1910 Fruit Gum Company or something before they had a record deal. And I love all those guys, the records too and stuff, but it was really, that was the most fun about seeing all these bands before they had any record deals and stuff, because they were really different bands.
So how have you guys managed to keep your own identity through all those years? You've never succumbed to pressure from record companies?
We haven't, although I I keep wondering, would that have happened if we were young and not as, if they'd signed us right away, would we have just gotten sucked into some kind of thing before we knew what hit us, and not be what we are today? I mean, I can't even judge what happened to somebody else because we were one of the bands that didn't have that kind of success anyway. And it's just, so we just have always, I don't know though, but also our band, we started out of a love. It was elements we loved to create. That was why we do what we do. It wasn't because we could be successful and that maybe this could be a hit. That was never why we did it. And we still love those same things. Some people say we don't grow, but we thought these things were timeless when our band started. That's why they influenced us. We saw common elements in rockabilly and 60s garage and the Ramones and the New York Dolls. All these things, to us, there was a thing in common. And we still love all of that. That still inspires us.
But even before we went to New York, we had thousands of records that we've been collecting in junk stores, rockabilly and blues records and stuff like that. This was our life, We'd go see all these other bands and stuff, and it was real fun. We liked being hanging out in the scene and everything. But we had a really strong idea of exactly what we wanted to do before we started, and the way it came out was probably sounded so weird to record companies that none of them wanted anything to do with us because they just couldn't have a clue. How could you make that sound like something good? So I think that was lucky in a way. We weren't even approached by record companies, but I think even if we were, we would have told them, get lost. We can't do anything but what we do.
I kind of like it that we were the one band they couldn't see anything worthwhile, because with Talking Heads, Ramones, Television, Patti Smith, who are all very different from each other, all these labels could see something that they could use in that, but with us it was just, there's nothing there. They couldn't see anything useful in what we did. They just, and they would all say that, well, we just don't see anywhere where this could fit in. Yeah.
I remember one record company that said that their fabulous quote about us, that why they didn't want anything to do with us. What guy at the record company said, well, they play really good music and everything, but they have no sexuality in that band, so we can't we couldn't think of what to do. They have no overt sexuality, they said.
Jesus.
Did they ever see a show live?
I don't know.
Listen to the lyrics as well. You were influenced by lots of older stuff. Have you seen anything recent that got you really excited these past couple of years?
Band-wise? Yeah, the band we saw that we loved, we already knew we loved, and was the 5-6-7-8. It's a band from Japan that's very influenced by the Cramps, all-girl band, really tough rock and 2 guitars plus bass and drums, and wild. It was wild, real tiny wild girls, and they played in this tiny club called Jabberjaw. Our friend has this club called Jabberjaw in Los Angeles, and they played there, and it was just amazing. There's bands we haven't seen, but we like the records. Guitar Wolf, another Japanese band called Guitar Wolf, a band from Memphis called the Oblivions. There's a band from Boston called the Upper Crust. Really cool. They wear like white powdered wigs, and all their songs are sort of exaggerations about being aristocracy, about being above everything. They have a song called "I'm a friend of a friend of the working class." So it's like the opposite of punk, but to such a exaggeration that it's hilarious. And they say we're too high class. Well, that's balderdash, and it's just, and they're great. And I'm sure I left someone out. Oh, the Demolition Doll Rods, who we're going to tour with. Danny was the guitar player, one of the guitar players in the Gories, who were a very legendary, broken up band, a legendary band that nobody's heard of. But now one of the guitar players is in Demolition Doll Rods. It's good.
They're on tour with us in America in October and November with Guitar Wolf, whoever comes to that show is going to really see going to get their money's worth, because those bands are really great, both of them.
I read this review of a Cramps show a couple of years ago, and it said, you better realize, kids, that without the Cramps, there wouldn't have been White Zombie, there wouldn't have been 9 Inch Nails, there wouldn't have been Deftones. Yeah. What do you think?
Well, I think that's true, and a lot of those artists you mentioned have, credited us with being an influence. They don't sound like it. I mean, those artists have done something original, but they wouldn't be doing that particular original thing without the influence of us, I don't think.
Well, it's flattering to that people say that, and I think it's true to some degree. But none of those bands really sound like us either. Because I have heard people say they're this Cramps influence band and that Cramps influence band. Most of the time, I can't hear it. I think they're influenced more by just all the things that we kind of stand for. Have kind of spawned a bunch of bands that like the same things as we do and have the same ideas about some things we do, and then make a little bit different kind of music. So that's good. I feel like it's made a more richer musical horizon out there for than might otherwise exist.
You guys know the Misfits?
It's amazing we didn't, and the first time we saw them was about 2 months ago.
No way.
No, we had never seen them. It's weird when they came just slightly after us in New York, and about the time they were playing clubs in New York was when we were starting to get recognition in Europe. So we were touring in Europe, and then in 1980 we moved to Los Angeles, and I guess they were becoming even more popular on the East Coast. And we never saw them. We never saw them with Glenn Danzig, but we just saw them 2 months ago in Los Angeles, and we thought it was great. It was a really good show, and I thought they looked like what punks should really look like. That was the look. That would be the perfect, not like you ain't no punky punk. And I thought, now that's a punk, And
because I thought they had the same vibe going on actually, but totally exaggerated as like the Cramps. I mean, this rockabilly over the top.
The show we saw didn't seem to have rockabilly, but it was just like a real heavier. Yeah. More a heavier sound. I don't know. Did they? I don't know.
Old records though are told that there are lots of rockabilly, rock and roll influences.
I didn't know. I didn't even know that. Yeah.
I Die, My Darling.
Yeah, because we knew that the titles and all. Yeah, that they. Because I think they're even on Plan 9 Records, and that was like a movie we really dig. Yeah.
And you moved to LA. Did the Cramps fit into the glam rock vibe going on?
You mean that thing in the 80s, that glam rock? No.
LA is so glam music-wise still, I think.
We don't have really anything to do with LA too much. We stay home. We live there, but we don't have a lot to do with it. We've in the 17 years we've lived there, we've been to 2 parties, I think. So
first was so.
There's different. The thing about LA, and it's so big, is there's a lot of different parallel scenes. And in the 80s, that glam rock one, I guess you mean like Guns N' Roses, LA Guns kind of thing, got noted for that. And there were a lot of bands like, that kind of designing themselves to please the music industry or something, But at the same time, there's always been good bands. And right now there's good bands. There's like a whole scene of bands like that wear disguises and play like kind of surf instrumental 60s stuff. There's some are real good and some aren't, and it doesn't even matter. They're all like kind of part of a scene. There. What's the one? Invisible Men, Ghastly Ones, the Black Widows, and they all have like. Some of them are, one member will be in several of the bands because you can't see the identity of who's even in the bands, so they play in several bands. They're sort of like concept bands, but in a real cheesy, fun kind of way. And so that's a very small scene, but it's a lot of fun. And that scene kind of shares with San Francisco. There's like kind of a LA, San Francisco, West Coast thing of these bands. And a big car club scene, too, which we like, which couldn't exist in New York. A lot of people have hot rod cars, with flame jobs, and they're really into putting every bit of money they have, they put into their cars. That's their world. And that's really cool. And that's actually growing. And there's becoming more of a connection with the car clubs and the band scene there. But it's very underground. It's not something you're going to read about in any kind of major press. It's more like the gearhead scene. And
is it still possible to be underground? I mean, like these days, it seems like the media picks up on things so fast.
No, I don't think that's true. It's very possible to be underground because it seems to me like everything that's groovy that's going on, the media doesn't pick up. They're often running with techno and saying that Green Day is the new punk, and they're doing all this kind of manufactured stuff. Meanwhile, there are a lot of really, really, really great bands that have to put out their own records, and they sell like 400 of them, and that's all that happens. The Mummies from San Francisco, they're just a really, really great band. And what could be more exciting? They come out all bandaged up and rotted looking and stuff like that and everything, and play really great music.
Like Sonics and
but you don't hear you don't hear it. You don't hear the Invisible Men. They come out there all wearing tuxedos and stuff like that, but all bandaged up faces and stuff like that. And play really. There's just a lot of great, like Guitar Wolf, their new album Planet of the Wolves. It's going to be out in a couple weeks or something like that. It's just amazing album. It's probably the most Cramps influenced thing I've heard, but they're just really way over the top, and really high energy, great thing. And I bet that won't get very big. It's just too wild. So yeah, in the answer to your question, it's very possible to be very underground these days. I think it's really the same thing. The best bands never get heard very much. The band we were talking about with the powdered wigs, the Upper Crust. I'm not sure. I think they might have broken up by now. And the Gories, they broke up. One of the best bands of the past 10 years or something like that. They broke up because no one paid a bit of attention. They could get nowhere. And they were an amazing band. Better than any band I can think of that's got some kind of major record company behind them.
You have to have a major record company deal, because the Dead Kennedys are pretty amazing, and they did it all by themselves, and Fugazi still does it by themselves.
No, I think probably a major record companies. In our experience, our last album went through Warner Brothers salesmen and stuff like this. It was distributed by Warner Brothers, and they did a horrible job. They didn't sell any records. It's the worst thing.
It's hurt us worse. Any achievements we've made have been more on our own through word of mouth and through our live shows. And when we've been involved with majors, it just gets confusing and messy.
It seems like a lot of, especially in America, I don't know over here, but in America, the media works in conjunction with the record companies, and the record companies invent bands, and the whole thing, it's just that major record, it's just product, And all the bands that are really doing something because they love music and they're really good at it and everything, it's the same story as with us when we started. The record companies don't want to know about that. It's too weird. They could never sell it. It doesn't fit. One of the main things major record companies say, I heard that they criticize bands as they say, it doesn't sound like what's on the radio now.
Yeah, you know how they sign bands, and I can't believe this is, and this seems different from like during the punk scene. I mean, because at least like when Ramones and Blondie and various bands were signed, there was already an excitement for those bands, and I think that led to them getting deals because there was like, sort of the buzz on the street. The public liked them. Their shows were really hot. But now the thing is, at least in America, is to try. It's like a race to sign a band, and they sign a band that's maybe all the time. They'll sign a band that's done like 2 shows, has no following. A lot of times they'll sign a band that's been playing for 2 years and has no following. Now that tells me that if a band's been playing 2 years and nobody's interested in them, why would you sign them? Yet like he mentions the Gories. There's bands who they do their shows and people go wild at the shows, and record companies don't take a cue from that. Like, well, if people are going wild right now, what would happen if we promote this and distribute this? That to me would be, in my mind, is more logical thinking. But that's not how they sign bands. They sign bands that are undeveloped, have not figured out how to connect with an audience yet. A band that doesn't, have anything. It's just somebody that's just formed, has not, means nothing to anyone. That just seems like a mistake.
It's part of the history of rock and roll. It's always been that way with big major record companies. They want to get something, and because they want to get it first before anybody else, and they want to say, look what we discovered. It's their ego, they're all ego trips, like nobody knows about it, and we got it, and it's ours, and we discovered it and everything. Meanwhile, it just stinks, and it sounds like something that's on the radio now, which also stinks, it's always been that way. VJ Records, Specialty Records had the opportunity to sign the Beatles, and they said, "Are you kidding?" That Little Richard tried very hard to get the Beatles signed to Specialty Records, and they could have had it. And the Beatles wanted it really bad because they loved Larry Williams and all the artists on Specialty Records, and Specialty Records went out of business right after that because they couldn't sell any records. But they didn't want anything to do with the Beatles because they looked too weird and it didn't sound like what was on the radio. Now no one would ever be interested in that, you know. It's just the history of rock and roll. It never changed. You know?
I see there are a lot of concept bands or groups like Meredith Brooks going on. What do you think of that?
Who is Meredith?
Meredith Brooks, I'm a bitch. That's one more song, like one hit.
Yeah.
Like, let's jump on the Alanis Morissette bandwagon.
Mm-hmm. Oh, yeah, that's a trend I don't like now, this like wimpy girly singer thing. And it's like, it's this progress for women. It's just showing them in their little girly wimps, just almost like where people want to see them or something. Like a big folk revival.
It's too bad because some of those, you look at them, I see them on television and stuff, and they hold the pick like this and go like this, and they don't know, and it just seems like, you know, it's some guy has got these people and made this thing happen and everything, and it's something easily controllable and everything. Meanwhile, there are a lot of women out there that are doing what she does and really great and stuff, and you won't see them either. You know, you'll see this product. It's mind blowing. But all these singer songwriter types, this is. I hate that stuff. This folk rock, you know,
and it's conservative. It's very easy to take, so it's just
no one will be upset. Yeah. No one will be offended.
So until now, it's just like those concept bands were mainly mainstream things. But now I notice like there are bands like Sugar Ray. You know Sugar Ray? They sound like they're put together by some weird marketing guy. Things like, hey, let's mingle Rage Against the Machine with the Chili Peppers. Now that will be a hit.
Well, that happens. Yeah, I haven't heard that one, but I'm sure there are manufacturers.
That's just the way that the record companies think. They want to invent something. You know, it's always been that way, and they usually invent something that's predictable, and then it's a hit because, you know, it's this big industry, and people, the sheep, run and listen to it and everything.
Whatever happened to slagging off other bands? I mean, you guys are actually the first one who say like, we hate that gory stuff or we hate that commercial shit, but most bands don't slag off any other bands anymore.
Yeah. Well, I don't even know if we slag band. We slag, what do you call it? Styles of things mostly. Yeah, we take the whole thing. Yeah. But I thought other bands did. So I don't read the music press. I thought bands, because aren't there famous like feuds, like the, you know, bands in England have feud with other band or something.
Yeah, but that's a media thing as well, because they have like so many music magazines they have to fill every week with lots of crap. Yeah.
It's like the enemy loves the Cramps, so the Melody Maker has to hate the Cramps.
Yeah. Oh, I see. Okay. Well, that's really stupid.
You guys ever had troubles with audiences or with the cops playing? I mean, because your shows are pretty, well, they could be offensive for people.
No, we've been pretty lucky that way as far as, you know, Lux hasn't gone to jail for getting naked or anything, but there's been some trouble with cops, unfortunately, with our fans, and mainly like outside shows, some kind of riot situations where a few times there would have been no riot if the cops hadn't started the riot, especially like Los Angeles. The cops are kind of famous for not just our shows, but a few. I think there was even a Bad Religion, that was famous, a Bad Religion show in the early 80s or something, where they just beat up everybody, you know, where the concert's going fine, you know, but they're just waiting to start. They just want to kick some punk's ass, and they do, and they'll have the helicopters and everything, and then it'll be on the news. Because we were on the news once, we did a show at the Palladium in Hollywood, and what they call it, the Crabs, or the Craps or something. They said, and they showed all this, like, you know, cops and punks running around and throwing rocks at cops, and they said at a Crabs concert. You know,
dangerous punks were attacking the police last night. You know.
But it was the other way around. Dangerous police were attacking the punks. But
because I could see you guys being followed by a mob of hillbillies with pitchforks and trucks and guns, etc.
Oh, no. That's just in the movies. No. Although Florida's pretty famous for hassling people, so I think we probably are more, because I remember thinking we should be careful here. And we've been in places where we're just traveling, like through a truck stop in Texas or something, where we get some really mean looks, and we just keep moving, you know. They make it clear that, you know, we're not wanted there.
But that's one thing with the Cramps. Like you've always been very sexual in your lyrics as well. Has that been one reason why you never got huge, because Americans can't really deal with that?
Possibly, I don't know.
Yeah, I think there's too much substance. When we first started out, Arturo, the Ramones, they're kind of like a production guy, their best friend and stuff. He said, "You guys are never going to make it because you're too good. You have to be lousy to make it, you know." And I think that's just about it. There's too much substance to the Cramps. There's too much to be frightened of, you know.
Yeah, he said there were too many facets, and that would just confuse people. You know, if it was just one simple thing, and they go, "Okay, I know what this is," and you can name it, categorize it, and put a package around it, but that you couldn't do that with us.
I always saw a lot of bands coming up after the Cramps got big, who like took part of the Cramps and developed that, like what's it called? Dan heet het? Weet je nou ook weer? Die gek. G.G. Allen. I think he took part of your show. What do you think?
Well, probably so. I haven't seen him, but I mean, it seemed that way. You know,
He's dead now.
Yeah.
But we never saw it or heard
So
it.
it makes me wonder, how did you survive?
Well, I think we're smarter than some people. That's all I could say. You know, I mean, we have a respect for. We love our band more than anything. A lot of people, they get in bands and they think they're rock stars, and we've seen it even within our band with some members and everything. And all of a sudden they think they're better than they're the chosen ones, and they're better than everyone else. And there's a reason why they should be here and everything, because they're such great, wonderful thing. And you can really get build that out of proportion where you think you deserve all this great stuff and everything. With us, it was always a respect for the band, you know, like the Cramps is us and it's our fans. It's one big thing, you know, and we're part of it, and it's a respect for the music and stuff like that. So we take care of ourselves and we think ahead and we look down the road for danger, you know. And
Yeah, I mean, wasn't G.G. Allen more of a performance artist, right, than music, and a lot of self-hatred from what I understand, which I don't think, I mean, Lux gets way out there and does strange things. I've never thought of Lux having self-hatred, that's what's being expressed. And unless I'm wrong, I thought that's what G.G. Allen was, a lot of his performance art was about.
I think sometimes these artist types like that, they kind of, you know, don't have talent, so they think of some other way to make a big noise, you know. And they go out and shit on the stage or something, and this is wild. To me, that's so boring. I can't imagine, you know, it's just unbelievable what some people think is wild, you know. I don't know. I always thought being wild had something to do with glamour and being original, you know.
Could you people relate to the hardcore scene when it grew, like with Agnostic Front in New York or with Germs in LA? Or
well, we're different from that a lot as far as, you know, our music isn't political, our lyrics aren't political, and that's just not what we want to do. And I think the bands that you're mentioning are, you know, it's a platform for political ideas, you know, in their lyrics, and also musically, like Lux was saying, there's certain kinds of music that we like a lot that was groovy to us, and a certain kind of groove, and a lot of those bands, it's just, it's a different wavelength. I don't feel the groove in a lot of it. That's just really fast pummeling thing. It's not as like a sexy groove to me, you know, or I'm not tuned into it if it is. So no, I think we're different both musically and just lyrically too. That we very deliberately avoid politics in our lyrics. We figure our lifestyle is enough of a statement and a comment on politics or anything else. I mean, that's one way to vote. We don't vote, for instance, but we feel like we vote with our behavior. We vote with how we spend our money. You don't spend your money on something that will, because money is the main thing that gives power to something. If you don't want something to exist, then don't back it up by buying certain things. So no, I don't identify with that.
Bands that are very political, it always seemed really insincere to me. Like it's just an act, you know. It's a way of getting some say, you know. You got to stop this, and the government and all this kind of stuff. It seems like so insincere. It just seems like glaringly insincere to me most of the time. But hardcore, I like the undergroundness of that. I respect that and everything. It's just there's no groove to it usually, you know.
When will you guys play Amsterdam again?
Maybe in spring next year. We haven't booked it. We're playing in America till the end of this year. I don't know yet if we'll play America again early next year, if we'll come to Europe. If we come to Europe, we'll play Amsterdam.
You always have a filled Paradiso because you have a big fan base here, no matter if you have a record out or not.
Yeah, we love playing the Paradiso. It's great.